quite a bit. If there's any time that it's going to be helpful for anyone bowling, it's going to be early in the morning. And because we have seen throughout these couple of weeks on both pitches, the best time to bat is in the afternoon.
Beats the outside edge, and but the rarest of things from Scott Edwards, almost an admission that he got it wrong a few days ago. He tends to be, and this is in a good way, I mean this in a complimentary way, he tends to be very driven and focused and set in his mindset and kind of certain of his decisions. But you and I thought he got it completely wrong by winning the toss and batting first in the reverse of this fixture, and he actually said to me there, the toss, well, you learn and you live, and we probably got it wrong. Joe, I was really surprised by it.
I think that's great. I can understand why, players are almost conditioned to not admit that they get something wrong, particularly captains, and I can understand that.
Good delivery, fantastic length from Kyle Klein. That's the kind of tone you want set from your opening over. As Klein goes for just one, it's 6 for none.
Yeah, really good second over from Klein, and this is what he was like against Scotland. He was tight early. Of course, a problem for him is he had to come back and bowl to Michael Leask when Michael Leask was on an absolute tear. Was belting everyone all over the place. But yeah, early on, and as we see, Makerin coming back to bowl his second over. You just want that first ball to be right length, right line. First up, just lay down your marker first. Don't put yourself in a position where you've got to try and get out of the over. An absolute place. Yeah, early on. Over. You just want that first up. Just lay.
Yeah, I think it was really. I'm just trying to work out who took Klein apart in that. It was the Nepal fixture, wasn't it? Nepal versus.
It was my mistake. I'm still blinded by the brilliance of that Michael Leask innings. He scored those runs against everyone, Lenny.
Yeah, no, didn't he just? But who was it that really took Klein apart in that, the reverse of that fixture? Just trying to pull it up here now.
I think it might have been Safian Sharif, actually. That's who it was. Pretty sure, wasn't it?
Might have been a bit of Mark Watt as well, was it?
Yeah, well, Safian Sharif got 36 off 18.
Incredible impact down the end, wasn't it?
Unbelievable.
Incredible impact. So much so that he's actually... All of these things can often be based around quite small sample sizes, Mel, but like... He's got the highest strike rate in terms of all the batters in this league right now, which is probably not something he would have necessarily expected. It's obviously off a very small sample size. He hasn't batted a huge amount either because the Scots have tended to go pretty well. Bertel drives, and a good drive. Beats the dive, a backward point. Might have just got a fingertip on it, did he, Zach Lyon Cachet? Because that seemed to slow up quite rapidly. Aryan Dutt will have a big role to play today. He does the fielding. Yeah, Safian Sharif striking at 118. Higher than anyone.
Higher than Michael Leask, which is really incredible.
Leask is in the top 5, don't worry, he's up there. He's striking at 106. It was great to see him back to form, wasn't it? Such a tricky tour in the Netherlands, and yeah, that game in 2 days' time, the Scots, well, they're going to be full of confidence, aren't they? They've kind of got the wood over the Dutch. 2 consecutive wins over them. They just look in better form than the Netherlands have done.
Oh, what's been encouraging for Scotland in this round is that it hasn't always been the usual suspects. I mean, especially with Leask, obviously, in the last game, but he'd been on a bit of a horror run of form with the bat. He'd been bowling well, but to see him roar back and it hasn't been the best series for George Munsey or for Brandon McMullen with the bat. So I think it's been quite positive to see the real emergence of like a Charlie Tear, to see Finlay McCreath being able to get runs as well.
Worked into the leg side, will just be a single. Yeah, it kind of shows how different the conditions have been, and they've almost turned themselves in the head. You'd have thought early May in the Netherlands, the ball would have done all sorts, but with that wonderful spell of early sort of late spring weather, early summer weather, depending upon how you want to look at it. The pitches were very flat there at the VRA and Kampong, whereas here, even though we've had some high scores, there's been kind of assistance early, particularly for the side who has to bat first. So, yeah, Munsey and McMullen have got found out by that kind of slightly different condition to the Netherlands, and they looked, well, I'll tell you something, they looked $1 million there last month. You have to be able to do it in all conditions, and I've no doubt Brandon McMullen in particular will want to put that right in the final game in 2 days. Good over from Van Meekeren, 9 for none after 3.
Yeah, that was much better from Van Meekeren. That first over just a bit loose at the start, and kind of had to get out of the over being much tighter. But this time around, he just seems to have found his line. So that's pulled it back a little bit. But yeah, each game, you just feel like it can turn on its head at any time. Lenny, you come into these fixtures, these teams, even when one team has a big win, you still feel like they're not very far apart all the way through this league.
Even the UAE are stranded at the bottom of the table. They beat Scotland, the reigning champions, in European conditions. Probably could have won another game or two. Just the fielding and the running between the wickets, Mel. We raved about Dipendra Singh Airi and Sampal Kami. We'll see Scott Edwards do the same for the Dutch. They had 8 run-outs in 5 games there. They could have had 16, 17, 18. And it was calamitous. It was, I hate to be harsh, but it was schoolboy running at times from the UAE. And that proved, well, just a handicap that they were giving themselves before they even played a ball that was too big to come over in so many of the games. As this is going to be swung away off a top edge, it's maybe going to end up going to the offside somehow. He's kind of caught up with it, hasn't he? And it's going to be the first boundary of the day. It'll go to Kushal Bertel. Maybe not exactly where he intended it, but it was a bit of a loose delivery from Carl Klein. Well put away.
Goes down in the scorebooks as a boundary, and that's all that matters.
Pretty sure this has gone to the offside in the end, so I don't know how you top edge a hook shot over to the offside.
That's extraordinary.
Just one bounce, isn't it, across the rope? I tell you, a miracle the cameraman even knew vaguely which way that was going, because it could have gone anywhere, couldn't it?
Well done to the crew.
Yeah, thanks to our crew, battled the conditions here so ably. Worked into the leg side. That's a good shot. A little bit of extra bounce from Carl Klein. There should be a couple as Paul Van Meekeren again will have to get more oxygen into the lungs. Good throw though, right in over the top. Good start this for Nepal. They don't need to be 60, 70, 80 after the first 10 here. They could even be 40, 45 for none or one at the end of the first 10. Given the conditions, that'd be a great start.
Yeah, it's quite circumspect early on. But, we know just how, we've seen how much they're able to catch up, because they don't have Gulshan Jar in the lineup today, and that's a big loss with his acceleration, but they've got plenty of power.
Really looking forward to watching Bashir Ahmed. Thought he was one of the standout players in the entirety of that inaugural Nepal Premier League in December, and that was in a Bharatnagar Kings side that, being honest with you, were struggling. He played a couple of remarkable innings under significant pressure. Can score all around the ground, particularly good against the spinners, and there's going to be potentially 20 overs of spin. So it will be fascinating to see where he will bat, because we've been given a kind of speculative list by the Nepal backroom staff in terms of batting order. This does not have to be stuck to, but he's listed down at number 7. We're just going to have a break and play here. They need to get some sawdust on, Mel, so it gives us a chance to look at the 211s. If we look at Nepal here, they're saying that Bashir Ahmed's going to bat 7, but I think that's, well, it's a really strange call, because it means I'll stick with Bim Sharkey at 3, Powdell at 4, Arif Sheikh at 5, Dipendra Singh Airi at 6. I think Bashir Ahmed might float up the order depending upon how the spinners are going and when he's needed, because he would be a great matchup, particularly against Roelof van der Merwe, a left-handed batter. facing the left arm spinner.
Well, that might be it. And just looking at it too, that you know this team a lot better than I do, but does it make the changes make their tail a little bit longer?
Oh, significantly. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
You know, Nandan Yadav can bat. He's very capable. He hits a big ball. But yeah, Lamachani at 10, Rajbanshi at 11. You're going to miss Sampal Kami. So I suppose the benefit is you'll get Karen KC up to number 8, which is no bad thing. I think he's often hidden away. He even batted number 10 at points of last year, which I found totally bizarre given his power and six-hitting potential. That's one of the ground staff from the Forthill Cricket Club. He's come all the way up from Australia. How is he in shorts?
He's the new Charlie Castle. Remember, he was working here on the ground staff last year and playing cricket for the club, and then got the call up into the side. And maybe there's another one there, Lenny, but I don't know how he's wearing shorts. Must be one of those mad Australians.
Know a few of them. Worked into the leg side for a single. The reaction and the response from Kyle Klein to his worst career figures will be interesting. Or most expensive career figures, should I say. He's had nothing but success really since he forced his way into this side. He's still just 23 years of age. But unusually expensive, both games against Scotland. I think maybe the concern, we just see the sawdust being patted down by Menda the fourth, 16 for none. Is there an element of Scotland kind of getting used to him over the couple of games in Netherlands last month and now the two matches here and kind of really taking a liking to him?
Yeah, that's a distinct possibility. And these teams, of course, face each other an enormous amount across two formats over a period of time. And that's why you can sometimes see a real impact from bringing someone new in. We saw that with Scotland bringing in Mackenzie Jones, their tall, incisive debutant who had a heck of a debut the other day. Took 3 catches.
I thought that was a great selection. Particularly given Nepal do have a bit of a weak spot in their batting in terms of bowlers with extra bounce. You're just seeing the first Nepal fans really start to come to life in the crowd. Driven down the ground and should be driven for 4. Max O'Dowd is going to chase after it, but I think it'll be a chase in vain and it will get to the rope, and the Nepal fans, instruments at the ready, are loving every second again.
Oh, fantastic. They really have made these couple of weeks up in Scotland so entertaining. Quite interesting that Za's yet to get off the mark, so all the runs so far coming from Forthill.
And this goes back to my point. I know he was playing down in the UK on the games that they played against the county sides. Back live with you now. But it's a bit different as an international cricket. It's a big step up always. And you look at his kind of cautious approach so far this morning. It's just as well he's got Bertel kind of on a hot streak at the other end. It's allowing him to get in.
Boy, they are in fine voice over there, Lenny. We met some of the travelling fans when we went to get dinner after the match the other day.
Incredible story, wasn't it? I think a group of 6 or 7 fans who'd come up from Birmingham the day before, got a train to Edinburgh, a coach to Dundee, but the coach was the kind of 1 a.m. coach that got into Dundee at 2:30 a.m. I think they'd walked up to Broughty Ferry or something like that.
They walked up and then they slept on the outside, waiting till it was early enough so that they could come to the ground. I was gobsmacking, Lenny. Talk about passion for the game.
Commitment,
and they were all smiles. Of course, they recognised you straight away. You superstar, you.
Not me. Such fanaticism, though.
Oh!
Chopped on. Van Meekeren has the early breakthrough. And Bertel, who is looking to continue to be aggressive in this first power play, has just perished with a slightly loose stroke. Better length from Van Meekeren, and all Bertel could do was chop it onto his own stumps.
Well, it took him a while to find his lengths, to find his lines. That one just nipping back in slightly, enough to catch the inside edge. And he might have been expensive early on. He might not have had the best start, Van Meekeren. But I'm sure his coach will be happy to see him with a wicket beside his name now.
Well, it's classic Paul Van Meekeren, isn't it? The X factor that he brings is always going to pose threat. No foot movement at all, though. The feet just completely wedged at the crease, and that's going to be what I think Stuart Law and Nick Pothas, the consultant coach, and Guy Endramala, the assistant coach, will look at here. Look at the feet. A half forward press and then no movement at all. And that's exactly why he's ended up... He's got great hand-eye coordination, but when the ball doesn't move, you can probably whip that away without moving your feet. Little bit of shape, little bit of indifferent bounce, and all he does is chop it onto his stumps. You could say unlucky, but look at the feet here. There's that initial forward press and then nothing. That's all. And he just ends up getting stuck in the crease and chops it on.
Now what that means is that we have two batters out in the middle who are yet to score. Bim Sharkey, who's just walked out there, and Anil Kumar Saar, who is still to get off the mark.
Beauty, really good from Van Meekeren. This is going to be such a challenge. Nepal have to look at the assets that the Dutch have and the 20 overs of Van Meekeren and Klein and find a way through them. And then they're going to have to score off the spinners, which won't be easy because they've been very frugal throughout the series for the Dutch. But particularly target that fifth bowler. That will be the critical 10 overs for this whole contest. For Nepal to have a real chance today, that fifth bowler, which was likely to be Michael Levitt in a combination maybe with a bit of Zach Lyon Cachet, but no Vikramjit Singh in the team today, so he can't be used as an option. They'll have to go really, really well against that fifth bowler.
Last time did they use Levitt for 10 overs? I had a feeling that they might have.
No, I think in the last game, Zach Lyon Cachet bowled a bit.
Maybe he did. It was
a previous game.
Yeah, it was one of the games where they ended up having to use him for 10 overs.
Which is the first time in his ODI career that he's done that. Yeah. But Levitt was targeted quite significantly in the second game. That was against Scotland. 5 overs, none for 34 that day. But yeah, previously against Nepal, bowled 10 overs, 2 for 43.
Lenny, I hate it when we're talking about a player and their fielding just in front of us.
I love it. Halfway through the power play, 5 overs have been bowled, 21 for 1. They're international cricketers, Mel. They've got much more to worry about than what you and I are saying. Good over from Paul Van Meekeren. Much better. It just looked to be struggling with his... something. I was talking to him last month in the Netherlands, and even though it was more pleasant conditions there, he was saying that at points he was finding it difficult to breathe. I think he does have, I'm not sure if it's asthma or something along the lines of one of the allergies of some kind. But now he's got the engine up and whirring, he's into his work, and he's the one who finds the first breakthrough. Carl Klein will continue. The other challenge for Scott Edwards with the side that he's selected is that you have to be so cautious of how many of your overs, your assets of those two seamers, the two frontline seamers that you're using up early, because you don't want to have, you probably won't bowl more than 5 either of these in their opening spells, will they?
You wouldn't imagine so at all, because he does have limited options. Yeah, so it does put a real challenge before him in just working out how he manages with the two frontline seamers. What it does mean is that he wants them to make breakthroughs in this power play.
Watchful from Anil Saar. Pressure starting to build. 11 consecutive dots he's faced. He'll know that he's not off the mark yet.
certainly will. And I tell you what, the drums that we're hearing, they actually sound ominous. They're bringing a feeling of tension even more to the fore here at the moment. Just knowing that something is going to break, that one of these two needs to get off the mark and just start ticking things over a little.
Edged and put down. It's a dolly. It's as simple as a first catch slip will ever come. Wesley Baracey, the veteran. Oh, he could have caught this twice. It went so gently to him. How has he put this down, Mel?
Well, we've seen a couple of catches go down here in the slips by fielders you wouldn't expect to drop them, but I don't think he'll ever get too many opportunities to take a more simple catch. Here it is again. Good ball, gets the thick edge, comes very slowly, drops down and ends up just bursting in and out of the hands.
He will get off the mark, Anil Sai. He has a life.
I mean, what would that have meant for Netherlands if they had them down at 21 for 2?
This will hopefully be the drop catch here, Mel. And it's almost like a catching practice one, isn't it? The one that the coach hits you before the game. Opening the face. Just as simple as they could. It was almost too simple.
And maybe that was it. I don't know. It's amazing, isn't it? We see these players pull off incredible feats in the field, and then the same player will drop one that they wouldn't drop 99 times out of 100.
It's come so slowly to him as well. That like you almost think as though Scott Edwards could have kind of come across and just taken it.
Well, I think he saw that it wasn't actually his catch technically.
Straight at first slip.
Baracey had it covered.
It should have been taken, but Wesley Baracey drops Anil Sat on 0. Big moment in the game, you sense. These are very, very helpful conditions. You can just see there. Just look at the left of the screen here, Mel. See that massive wet patch on the pitch that we used 2 days ago? I think the intention was always to use this surface for today's game. This is now the third match on this hybrid surface. Both are hybrid surfaces. They can take the volume of cricket. There's no issue. But that will be a concern for 2 days' time, that wet patch. They might have to play a 4th out of 6 games. The initial plan would have been 3 on each. But yeah, it's very heavy, isn't it? It looks right around a kind of a left-hander's good length, or a full length.
I'm trying to work out how one particular patch gets so much wetter than
I think
the
he got in
rest.
underneath the covers because they have both roll-on and sheeted covers here. But it was a heavy, almost like a full day of rain yesterday. 6 overs bowled, 23 for 1. And the Dutch are saying, well, how's it not 22 for 2? Dropped a lot of catches last month too, Mel, in that series that they hosted, which is just not something you would expect from the Dutch side ever. They're usually a very, very good fielding team.
We've just added to that feeling of, I called them looking a little bit lackluster, and I think that was part of it as well. Just not as intense and focused. Why is that?
Whipped off his pads just as well. If he misses that, he's in trouble, Bim Sharkey. Yeah, for me, Mel, as well, you consider they've looked a little lethargic too. Played a heavy volume of cricket coming into this series domestically. I believe it was 5 matches in a pro series and then 3 top class of games within about 12 or 14 days. So you're kind of playing maybe 8 games in 12 days, something like that. But they've had 4 days off in between these 2 games, or 3 days off, 4 days since the last one. I think a few of the boys played a bit of golf from seeing them enjoying their time. They trained they trained 2 days ago though. So that again beats the outside edge. So that was during the chase. So Scott Edwards told me they were watching the first innings of the Nepal Scotland game, but didn't get to watch the second. But just, surprising, because you think of Dutch cricket, you think of impeccably high standards. Well bowled again, Van Beekeren.
Seems to just take Van Meekeren a few balls to kind of warm up. Big man, just get the motor ticking over, but he's certainly found his length now. His line has been sorted.
Down the leg side this time. Sa looks a bit at sea out there, doesn't he? Lateral movement, bit of extra bounce from Van Meekeren. You don't want to say it's a case of when rather than if he gets out, but he's got to find a way to get through this really difficult phase.
Yeah, well, with each dot ball, that pressure's just mounting. Knowing that he's just come back into the side, he's probably got a whole lot of things on his mind. As you say, difficult coming in and trying to make an impact in the last game. If he can just find a way to get the single even.
That was at a catchable height again, wasn't it? But wide of the gully fielder. It's actually a backward point, excuse me, Zach Lancashire. If there was a gully in, might have been interesting. Gets a second single.
Actually missed that previous ball was actually a wide from Van Meekeren. But he's creating just a few problems for Sa. Can he create them for Sharky? Sharky's already got an equal with Sa. Ooh, extra bounce.
Dramatic bounce. Yeah, Bim Sharkey was trying to channel his inner Joe Root there, wasn't he, to get it up and over. But this has really flown, hasn't it? Extra zip, much more like it, more pace from Van Meekeren.
Yeah, that extra pace. If it's going to be short, we've seen quite a few bowlers in this series not have the pace of Van Meekeren, and when they've tried to bowl short, it's been really far too easy to put away, especially with the wind assistance. But that was a very good bouncer from Van Meekeren.
Chipped in the air. It's a good shot. Brave shot as well. Because he easily could have just chipped this up to Kyle Klein. It's very long up to that corner, 77 metres, so they'll get an easy 3 as the running between the wickets continues to be good. For Nepal, it's very difficult, isn't it, to talk about what they would like as a total, as a target right now, because there's so much cricket to be played. But you'd think they're going to need it to get up to at least that 220, 240 sort of marker. They obviously couldn't get a lot more than that if they get in, but might not be the kind of day where you're going to need 300 as such.
Well, also it's that funny psychological difference, isn't it, about chasing, and that marker is there. It's so different having to set the marker yourself.
Edged and gone this time. We said it felt a little like a matter of time for Anil Shah, who just could never get settled at all. It's as easy a chance for Noah Cross at second slip as the one that Wesley Baracey put down. He holds on, and he will be getting a big pat on the back from Baracey in particular. Shah perishes for 2.
Again, just opens a face and fences it. Great diving catch. He took the gloves while the captain was out injured. A pretty handy player to have in there in the slip. So not too much damage done by the drop of Baracey, because Anil Shah departs for just 2. It was a pretty tortured innings all told, and Netherlands have their second.
Nepal in real trouble. They had a fantastic series. I think if they were offered from the ODI leg of this tour 2 wins from 4 at the start, they'd probably have taken it, given the calibre of the opposition and given the alien conditions, particularly if we knew what the conditions were going to be like that we've ended up with, because it's been at points close to freezing cold. There's been heavy winds. It's been incredibly difficult and adverse for all the players. But the fact that they got those 2 wins in the first 2 games and then came within touching distance. Many Nepal fans will say, well, we should have won. We needed, 16 to win off 15 balls. We had 3 wickets in hand. We had Sampal Kami flying. We should have got there. But in all reality, it was a miraculous comeback to even get close. But they're going to have to do it in a different way today. I said this morning it felt like a massive toss. Probably the biggest toss of the 5 games that we've seen so far, Mel. Oh, so nearly another. And Scott Edwards is going to be saying, why don't I have a gully in? I'm all over the opposition. There's no fluency at all from them. Why isn't there a third catcher in there? Would that have been straight to gully?
It certainly would have been close. Wonder if we'll see any change in the field. Look, Lenny. Someone coming into that gully position.
Yeah, I don't think he is. I think
he keeps walking around.
He's staying at backward point.
Yeah. Well, he was walking backwards and forwards. I was waiting for him to settle.
Rowan Powell immediately into his work. He's a man for all seasons. As the skipper hasn't had the runs he would have liked so far on this tour, but he certainly, from a technical perspective, alongside Asif Sheikh, who's been left out, probably the technically most correct player from a batting end for Nepal. Well, Sampal Kami actually is very classical as well, even though he's down at number 8 in the order when he plays. Remember, Kami, one of 3 changes today. Kami, Gulshan Jah and Asif Sheikh left out. 2 of those for injury reasons. We wish Sampal Kami's recovery from that fractured elbow. It's actually just a small fracture to a bone in the elbow rather than a fractured elbow as such. And Gulshan Jah missing out with a knee niggle. Nicely bowled by Klein, beats the outside edge. They're the 3 that have gone out. Bashir Ahmed, Nandan Yadav and Anil Shah, who's already departed into the team. He'll keep wickets later in the match in the second innings. Yeah, you do wonder, don't you, how are Nepal going to get through this? And is Vivian Kingma sitting on the sidelines going, if I'm not playing in these conditions, when am I going to play? A bizarre selection, isn't it? I'm not saying that Aryan Dutt doesn't deserve his spot, but surely you have got to pick an extra bowler in these conditions, extra seam bowler in these conditions.
Well, they're the sort of conditions certainly you look at. Your eyes tell you something, don't you? When there's lots of cloud around, there's been rain the previous day. It is unusual. I'd love to be able to ask the question why.
Flowing dry, but a fantastic stop. Outstanding. And who else would it be but the 40 years young Roelof van der Merwe?
Oh, he's a legend. What a legend. He's fantastic. He's another one, just every emotion on his face. I always worry that he's going to pop a vein in his forehead because he gets so emotional, throws his body. Not getting past me, he says.
Well, incredibly, that was to his weaker side as well. That was definitely 4-run save because it was a fluent piece of timing from Rowan Powell. Pressed forward nicely.
Who immediately just looks so good at the crease whenever he comes out. He adds a real sense of calmness, I feel. Often coming out when his side's in a bit of trouble.
Good leave. It's a big day for Rowan Powell. There's been... I'm not going to get into the detail of it too much, Mel, because I'll be honest, I'll use that word again. Nonsense. There's great fanaticism in Nepal. Sometimes the passion spills over, and purely because of the defeat 2 days ago, there's been all sorts of calls on social media for a new captain. Madness, isn't it? They've won 2 incredible games, come within touching distance of another win, and yeah, there's absolutely no chance that will be the case. Certainly anytime soon, I would expect. I think Stuart Law will want to settle into things with his young captain, Rowan Powell, who runs well between the wickets, but it will be a single. But equally, he would like a few runs. He's got a couple of scores, 37 and 23, but he was really disappointed the other day, wasn't he, getting out, punched the bat in frustration. Big day for him. He'd love to get a score and kind of lead from the front in very difficult batting conditions.
As we finish the 8th over, 33 for 2, I'm kind of astonished to learn that from you, Lenny, not having been around it as much. I've just always found him impressive. When you think of some of the things that this Nepal side have achieved under his leadership, it's astonishing. You know, they do punch so far above their weight in world cricket. As we saw in the the T20 World Cup, every time they've come up against anyone. And, it's one of those things we all have to remember, no matter how passionate we might be, that these players are human beings as well, dealing with a lot of pressure, a lot of things going on. They're never going to be perfect, but one thing I'm very sure is that Rohit Powerplay is a really brilliant ambassador for cricket in Nepal, and he's a great leader, and the country should be proud of him.
He's a good young man as well, I have to say. Not just about him on the field, off the field, he impresses me. He's such a talented batter too, and we saw in that West Indies A series last May, Mel, that helped them build up for the T20 World Cup against basically close to a first string attack at points of that West Indies side. He took them apart. He was a leading run scorer from either side in the series. He's a prodigious talent. He's a superb fielder. His fielding gets overlooked because of the brilliance of Irie and Sharkey and Bertel. He's a brilliant fielder. He leads by example. I think he's grown into the role as captain. Remember, he was, I think, the second youngest captain in ODI history. Made captain at a very tender age. This one jags back in, but there's an inside edge, and Paul Van Meekeren knows it. If there wasn't, I think that would have been that for Rohit Powerplay.
Oh, goodness gracious. Genuflecting. My word, how is that missed? Gosh, that was a beauty of a ball. Come back in, and he's going, no! How has that missed? But this is why he is bowling up top today.
Yeah, definite inside edge. Good decision. It could have gone anywhere. He was just about to go up with the huge appeal.
And he just went down with the oh my goodness.
Can he get through these three balls? Because that might be it for Van Meekeren for the moment. That'll help. Nicely clipped off his legs. Should get a couple. Does. Thinks about a third. The misfield will allow a third. Nepal are at it again between the wickets. And that'll get Sharkey onto strike. Can he survive these two from Van Meekeren? If he can, you'd think Edwards is going to have to take him off and hold five back.
He still can't believe it, Van Meekeren. How had that missed? And he started off with those couple of wides. It wasn't the best start you can see. He's bent over. But we thought he was maybe suffering from a little bit of asthma or allergy or something early on. He was blowing hard, the big man. But you have to say he's had a real impact on these early overs. Oh,
that's a great leave. Funny, isn't it? ODI cricket, it's come under the microscope in recent times. It was a hot topic down at that MCC World Cricket Connects that we were talking about a couple of days ago, where Paris Kadka was also present. It's such an undervalued and wonderful format, particularly for the associate game, because with the exception of a couple of countries domestically, nobody plays longer formats than this. This is the Test cricket for associates. They don't get to play 3 or 4 day cricket anymore. The Intercontinental Cup is no more. Massive appeal. Is it angling down? Yes, says the umpire. Van Meekeren can't believe it. Nor can Wesley Baresi. Has Bim Sharkey, from what we feel will be the final ball of the spell, got away with one? Let's get a look.
It's pretty close. The only thing it can have been doing is angling down, because that ball stayed quite low. Again, maybe decisions going the way of the batters. We saw this a couple of days ago.
It's been the trend in the series, isn't it? The umpires, there's no doubt, have favoured the batters. And a lot of Nepal fans, that was the other consistent message I've been getting over the last 2 days, was that, well, hold on, we've been, the umpires are doing us badly. And I don't think they're of course not favouring either side, but they've definitely seemed to have favoured the batters. You think it was the Karen KC one to Richie Berrington first ball. It was very similar to that, actually, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think DRS is going to say some kind of contact with the stumps, but it might have been umpire's call rather than hitting leg stump. Ariane Dutt's going to come into the attack, which will allow us time. Look at Zachline Cachet saying, Bim, you've got away with one there. Let's have a look. What do you think at home? Was this crashing into leg stump? Oh, it looks very, very close. Edwards was convinced, wasn't he? He was off celebrating. Umpire's finger stayed down.
Yeah, I think he's fortunate, put it that way. But what a good turnaround from that little bit of a sloppy start from Paul van Meekeren. 5 overs, 2 wickets, 2 for 22. That's ended up being a fine, incisive spell from him.
Well, it's 11:49 a.m. local time. The ball's been doing all sorts for the seamers. But the Dutch have picked 2 spinners, so they have to get one of them in early. Ariane Dutt has often bowled in the power play, usually in more friendly spinning conditions, particularly in Asia, where he's open the bowling, but they've just got their team selection wrong here. Whatever the result, they might go on to win this game. Surely Ryan Cook is sitting there in the team dugout going, well, maybe we should have played Viv. Or maybe the debutant, the potential debutant, Ben Fletcher, the left arm seamer from the VRA club.
Yeah, it's unusual, as you say. We haven't seen spin play a huge role as far as the ball turning prodigiously up to this point. We've seen a little bit, but it's more been about taking pace off the ball. But here you do feel like, with the conditions as they have been this morning, that just having another option of a seamer coming in would have been really handy. Someone is warming up without a number on their back. It's Van der Merwe. Right.
The thing that Dutt will do is, and the spinners have generally gone pretty well on these surfaces actually, he'll get good bounce, he'll get a bit of turn, and he historically keeps things very tight. So it's not as though it's a weakness having Dutt in the side. I'm not suggesting that necessarily Dutt should have been left out, but could they not have gone with another bowling option? They pick 7 batters again. Swept round the corner, top edge is going to land safely. If you look at their batting lineup, they've again and again stuck with 7 batters. No matter what, we've seen Noah Kroos as a batter at number 7. That means they have to make up the 10 overs between Michael Levitt and Zachline Cachet today. Unless Wesley Baracey somehow is a bowl. He hasn't bowled in a long time in international cricket. I know he's still bowling the top class.
Well, we might see a lot of Levitt again.
But Nepal have to target that.
They absolutely.
End of the power play. We said 45 for 1 would be a really good result. Nepal aren't quite there. They're 37 for 2. Could it have been 37 for 3 though, with Bim Sharkey surviving a very, very tight LBW call. Fascinating early encounters here. Nepal hanging around in the contest, but the Dutch on top, as it's going to be now spin from both ends, it looks like.
Yep, that spotting of Van der Merwe warming up. And it is going to be spin from both ends. So straight into, well, maybe hoping that still with these this pair not having got away yet, they've just made a start. Now's the time to start getting in the spinners to ask some questions straight away, rather than perhaps going to a Levitt as an example at this point, giving them someone to target.
I think the reality is, as to why they go with the 7 batters, the Dutch, they aren't. Obviously, if Basteleda is here, it's a different balance to the team, particularly when he's able to bowl. And then all of a sudden you can play the 7 batters, and then you can make up your 5th bowler between Deleda, Levitt, O'Dowd, if you want to get some licorice ulcer leg breaks, and Zachline Cachet. But the balance of this team, I think they feel their batting isn't as strong as it can be. No Colin Ackerman, of course, a huge blow. So many in English county cricket that could be utilised. Brandon Glover still continues his return from injury. I think he's based in London at the moment. Tim van der Hoogten from Glamorgan was on the tour of Namibia. He adds that kind of all-round depth at number 8 with the bat too. Slowly bowled through the air, teasingly bowled. I can't believe the balance of this team. It rained all day yesterday, man. Why have they picked 2 seamers?
Well, I was going to say, it sort of suggests too that there is perhaps not a lack of confidence, but a realisation that their batting order isn't as strong. But then that doesn't really account for no Kingma.
Really teasing stuff from Van der Merwe, and Powerplay getting himself in a tangle. And like, that's not to say that the 2 spinners isn't a good call. It's just keep Van der Merwe and Dutt in the team. They're both very economical and very impressive, but find a way to get a 3rd seamer in. If it means you've got to pick a batter less. Because again, the attempted sweep from Powerplay, it's so slow through the air from Van der Merwe. Powerplay doesn't know what to do. But get a 3rd seamer in. Going to be pressure on Levitt's overs. Be interesting to see how he goes, and when he's used as well. Spin for the moment in tandem.
Just saw some very sharp work there from Scott Edwards, the previous ball as well, in whipping the stumps off. It's not just his captaincy and his batting that Netherlands will be happy to have back. It's his work behind the stumps as well.
Would like to see these 2 find a way to put Van der Merwe off his length. You can't allow the great man just to bowl at that sort of pace through the air. Really teasing stuff from the veteran. Great to watch, isn't it? So fantastic to have him continuing to give back to Dutch cricket. The talk around the camps is there's nothing official, but I think the T20 World Cup, if the Dutch qualify next month, could be his curtain call. I think he's really a place. He's obviously played a lot of cricket in India, and it would be a great way for him to go out, wouldn't it?
Yeah, he's been such a servant for this Dutch side, and such an entertainer. That's what I love about him. Doesn't matter which team you're following. He's been such a great ambassador to still be doing it at 40 years of age and 161 days. Don't forget them either. But yeah, wonderful servant for us, all of associate cricket. I've actually got a question that I want to ask you, Lenny, or your opinion. We've talked so much about how wonderful this ICC Cricket World Cup League-2 is, how fiercely it's contested, the context it has that's so sorely lacking. Just the one in bilateral cricket and everything that we have here. There's no trophy for winning it, is there? Is there?
There is, yeah.
Oh, there is a trophy.
There is. In Scotland were presented that trophy out in Kathmandu.
Oh, see, but is it called anything? Is there?
It's just the victors, the champions of ICC Men's Cricket World Cup League 2. What I think, I'm hoping I got this right. I suggested it to the ICC, is that they utilised the trophy that was there for the ICC World Cricket League Championship, because that was one that Ireland won back before they ascended to test status, and then the Dutch won the final edition of it. Ireland won it twice. It was a really beautiful trophy. So I don't know if they ended up getting that across or not, or if there was kind of a temporary trophy used. But that was a really fine sort of, almost looked a little bit as the reverse sweep comes out for at least a couple. May get to the rope, actually. Got a good piece of it, Bim Sharkey. It's a good little counter attack. Extra bounce from Dutt has kind of helped that reverse sweep run to the rope.
Yeah, really well played. Just got it over the head of the slip in the end. Crows couldn't do anything about that. There's a little bit of a risky element in it, but pays off on that occasion. Yeah, see, I mean, I suppose, look, it's my own ignorance, but there's something about that. I feel like we should make more of it.
And you got to remember as well, Mel, that, from that Cricket World Cup League Championship, World Cricket League Championship, I'm getting my tongue twisted with all the different names for the competitions here, but it was the Dutch that ascended from that to the ICC Men's Cricket World Cup Super League. So if the Super League returns, and this is something I've spoken to a few of the leading sides about, you might think it's ludicrous that the teams don't know in advance, but it's just the reality of world cricket. You might say it's wishful thinking, but if the Super League returns, if they decide to go with, let's say, 13 or 14 sides in that Super League, there's a bit of talk they might look at a 14-team Super League with 2 pools of 6, 7. And then you'd play, let's say, maybe home and away against the six sides in your pool. That would also, then you'd probably put India and Pakistan into the 2 different groups for political reasons. They can't play bilaterally at the moment. That would solve that problem. But the only way that the ICC would decide upon who the 2 associates were from this cycle is the first and possibly second in ICC Men's Cricket World Cup League-2. So it's something that Nepal suffered actually in a recent Asia Cup qualifier. Just cut away. There'll be at least a couple. Tejanita Minoru who does the sweeping. So they went to the ACC Men's Premier Cup last year in Oman, trying to get back to a second Asia Cup consecutively after qualifying for their first and taking on India and Pakistan in the ODI format. That rotates between ODI and T20 format depending upon what the next and closest World Cup is. So they lost their semi-final to the UAE, but the rumours were, it wasn't confirmed at the time, that the Asia Cup might be expanded from 6 teams to 8. So they've lost the semi-final, which in theory ended their qualification chances. UAE went on to win the tournament comfortably. Mohammad Wasim was sensational. They then had a 3rd place playoff to get up for it. I think it was the very next day, less than 24 hours later. I have a very close relationship with Monty Desai, continue to do so, the former head coach. I did my level 3 coaching course with him 15 years back now. So we've always been very good friends. And I went to Monty that night. As Powell does get the sweep out, and we'll pick up a single. And I said, Monty, the talk I'm hearing, it's not confirmed, is that the top 3 from this thing are going to qualify, even though at the time of the competition it was only the top 1. I said, I know it's going to be so difficult to rouse your boys because they're so disappointed having lost to the UAE and they're heartbroken and crestfallen, but the game tomorrow against Hong Kong, you've got to get them up for. And I said, I'll leave it up to you. I'm not the coach, you're the head coach. I would tell them if I was you. I would say, guys, edged away should be a couple. As Van Meekeren does the donkey work, we'll keep it to 2. And actually, I don't know whether or not he did tell them in the end. I left that up to him, it's not my place. But it proved to be true. It proved that in the end, as we see a little plane head in towards Dundee Airport, that they changed it. So it's so unfair in one way on the associates, but it's also the reality. And there's track record of this happening on multiple occasions through different formats and structures. This is powerfully swept well in front to square. Races to the rope, beats the dive of Michael Levitt, and the 50 comes up in some style from Pim Sharkey.
Good to see the locals getting involved as well. It's the first boundary we've seen in a while is played a sweep and the reverse sweep. On this occasion gets it forward because he's picked up the length so early. And that dive was a long way off in the end. It looked spectacular, but he had no chance of getting there in time.
Michael Levitt is prepping for the Olympics. He's thinking 2028 LA. We're seeing cricket return. He might be on the springboard platform with a dive like that. Oh, Levy, that's an absolute... God, he went into the air, didn't he? Theatrical.
But he was still... He was, I reckon, 2 metres behind it. But it's the effort that counts, Lenny. The commitment. 13 overs gone now. Nepal 52 for 2. It's been a tough start, but this partnership now is starting to become productive. I want to hear more of this, Lenny.
Yeah, so the reality is that whilst you can't presume or know that if you finish first or second in this league, you might end up ascending up to a returning Cricket World Cup Super League, but there's so much talk right now about trying to get context into ODIs. I'd love to say it's going to happen. I can't say that for certain. The reality is the governing body, the ICC, is very much guided and serving its members. It's 12 full test members and it's 96 associate members. And they're the ones, the key, people often ask me, well, who makes these decisions? Well, the real key decision makers in world cricket are the ICC board, the Chief Executives Committee, and you could say the Development Committee, but it's more the Financial and Commercial Affairs Committee that dictate exactly how the game is run. So we get another look at that dive. Reverse swept and a good diving stop. Body on the line. I think it's Kyle Klein, isn't it, who's maybe worn that in the shin as much as anywhere, but he saves 3 runs. So if the Cricket Committee, or the other key decision maker, if they decide, well, hold on, we want to get the Super League back, and the members agree to it, and there is a push. The talk I'm hearing is 4 or 5 of the 12 full members want the Super League back.
Well, Australia was certainly one of them. It was being reported in Australia that Mike Baird, the chair, and also Todd Greenberg, the CEO, are very much pushing for a return to the World Super League.
And the reality is, if that happens, it has to be better explained, better marketed,
yes,
and better understood, not just by the administrators and the boards, but the broadcasters and the pundits and the journalists, and there's a big job to be done there.
And the players.
The players, absolutely. And there needs to be everything from the talk down at World Cricket Connect, sorry to go back to it again, was adding context and jeopardy. The word jeopardy was used again and again. And it's the same for any World Cup format of any kind. Without jeopardy, that's why the 10-team World Cup, okay, we ended up with a couple of incredibly memorable matches, particularly the 2019 final, one of the great games of all time. Outside of that, a lot of that group stages in 2019 was, like, the pens were sharpening from the British press, weren't they? It was long, felt a bit predictable as Sharkey chops an inside edge, and a great piece of running from Powerplay gets the single to close out the 14th over, 56 for 2. And then we had the couple of great games too in 2023, the Maxwell game against Afghanistan. A couple of Dutch wins were very memorable indeed. But my point is, I'm not saying that first or second is going to mean something extra, but it could. So if you can, particularly if you're the likes of a USA, a Netherlands, a Scotland, although if a Canada or a Nepal get winning in the latter stages, the second stages of this competition, they could put themselves in the picture too. You don't want to rest on your laurels and finish 3rd or 4th. You want to try and press for that silverware, try and win the competition, and if you can't win it, try and finish 2nd, because you just don't know what that might mean come 2027, 28, as we move into that next 4-year cycle.
The other thing, though, Lenny, if you do bring back the World Super League, in the same way that we love this league and we push it and promote it as much as we can, and scream blue murder to the world that yes, there is international cricket with context if you know where to look. But if we had the World Super League, and I swear to you, most people didn't know it existed right when we were in the middle of it. A lot of fans did not know about it. I don't think players knew about it.
Swept around the corner, swept out towards the rope, but not necessarily with enough pace to get there, as Michael Levitt does enough to save a run. You can just see there, it's a little heavy underfoot, isn't it?
Yeah.
Been quite a little bit of rain yesterday, and that's affected the outfield a bit slower today.
Yeah, there are a couple of divots in front of us. I was hoping that we were going to get a dive right in front of our tent, Lenny. I was ready for it. I had my little sign ready to go up with the 9.6. But I do think that if we have it, we've got to make sure that everyone knows what it is.
One of the other concepts which I quite liked, the World Cricketers Association have put forward, is again brilliant running. We'll get a second. They were talking about potentially for all formats having 8-team leagues right in front of our commentary tent there. You can can see the little bit of slippy surface that Michael Levitt's been dealing with. They were talking about 3 8-team leagues for ODI and T20I cricket. That would expand the number of ODI countries, of course, by 4. It would also, I suppose, for like a West Indies, a Bangladesh, those sides on the precipice of the top 8, would put a big focus on them to try and get to play with the big boys. It would also give a way for a leading associate to have a great cycle and get up. Now that would be with 2 up and 2 down was the concept. 2 promoted, 2 relegated, and then for Test cricket above that it would be 2 divisions of 7 that they're proposing, with a couple of new Test nations being brought in. I think that's a great structure. 14 Test nations, 24 ODI nations. Probably expand the T20 stuff to 4 divisions, have a top 32, because there's certainly enough good T20I teams out there. But that was part of a calendar and a structure they were proposing that was to try and get not a single match more of international cricket without context, and that every single game contributes towards something. And I think the players would buy in pretty quickly to that if they gave it the things that it would need, which is, good prize money, good windows for it to be played within, making sure it's best v best. End of the 15th, 64 for 2. Just one more over to the